Good morning, everyone, and how are you all today? If you're on my side of the woods, you are fighting a heat wave, and I know somewhere else you are fighting something much, much cooler. But in all things, we express our gratitude. So, getting it done with gratitude, another Thursday, and here we are. First of all, our apologies for starting a little bit late. These tech gremlins visit us every now and again, and once we have a plan in motion, they decide that they need to come to the party, and so we had to boot them out. So that caused us to be a few minutes late. So our sincere apologies for joining you a few minutes behind our scheduled start. I'm your one of your co-hosts, Karen Williams Thompson. I'm a life and business strategist, and what I do simply is I help women get unstuck by saying yes to themselves, yes to their dreams. And how do we do this? We do this by getting absolutely clear on what is it that they truly want. What are the goals they want to achieve? What is the vision they really have for their life? What's keeping them stuck? What are the things or the stories that you're telling yourself that are going to get in your way and stop you from stepping into that awesomeness? And then we create a strategic and intentional plan to help you successfully achieve those things and live the life that you imagined. And this morning, we are really going to be talking about emotional intelligence and how that impacts all of those things that you want to do. And so it really all ties in to what both Shelley and I do. So before we dive into this, I'm going to ask Shelley just to introduce herself, and then we are really getting into emotional intelligence. How does that really help us navigate our life? And in particular, how using or combining gratitude with that really sets us up for success. Shelley?
Yes, yes, yes. Good morning, Karen. Thank you. And good morning to all of those of you who are joining us live. Thank you so much. If you're looking at the recording, thank you for your time as well. And as Karen said, today we're talking emotional intelligence. And for me, gratitude is like a core part of that. So when I work with my clients and we deal with the habits, because I'm a gratitude guide and habit coach, because I believe that gratitude is like the keystone habit that helps us develop the other habits that we need to get to where we want to go. Because if you look at it, there's a saying, you are what you focus on, you are what you repeatedly do. And so at the end of the day, if we are not getting to where we want to be, then we need to look at the habits that we have and manage those and develop the ones that will help us get to where we want to be. And that's where I come in as a habit coach. And I work with something called the gratitude strategy, which asks you to say it right, focusing on your language, say it loud, making sure that it's both internal and external, and then saying it always, which is where we look at developing that important keystone habit of being grateful. And today, the topic of emotional intelligence, as we said, really puts that into practice. How gratitude can help you develop this emotional intelligence. And last week, we had a really awesome discussion on
Mhm.
emotional intelligence and gratitude and how it's connected. So if you've missed that, not to worry. The recording is on each of our profiles on LinkedIn, as well as you can check it out on YouTube. Just
Yeah.
search for Getting It Done with Gratitude on YouTube, and that would be episode 25. So let's get into it. Well, how do we begin? I guess just a quick revisit of what emotional intelligence is all about.
Yeah, we can do that. I mean, emotional intelligence is the ability for us to recognize, to understand, and to effectively manage our use of our emotions in ourselves and in others. And one of the ways that we really can do this is by being self-aware. And that again is immediately is something that really ties right into to gratitude, and something that you hear Shelley talking about quite often once you're in her space. Because when you are self-aware, when you are able to understand your own emotions, you are connected to that inner you. You hear people talking about the inner child and the inner you, but when you are connected to that inner you, when you're understanding your emotions, when you're in touch, you are then better able to identify and to label them correctly. And that is one of the fundamental cores of emotional intelligence, being able to understand your emotions. When you're able to understand your emotions, that allows you to regulate them. And when you can regulate them, that means that you are not impulsively doing this or jumping to conclusions or judging others, because judging is a huge thing for us. But when we are more in that space of emotional intelligence and we are able to regulate, we have that understanding which has come from our self-awareness. It allows us to identify and to connect with it so much better. And what that does, it reduces emotional triggers, and that is
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
That in
Mhm.
itself is awesome. So that's one of the things that that we want to, highlight. That self-awareness is
Yeah.
really a very important part of that. And right behind that is the empathy. So, self awareness then helps you to develop the empathy. And all of this time, you are now building the stepping stones in your emotional intelligence. You're building a muscle. That is the word I was looking for. You're building the muscle of your
Yeah.
emotional intelligence. And that is so, so important. Because when you become more aware of that, you are more attuned to the emotions of others. And think about
Yeah.
it. When you are connected to you and you are now attuned to the emotions of others, it directly impacts how you connect with, how you relate to them, how you're able to meet them where they are. And
Mhm.
that then means that that whole relationship and connectivity is so much more meaningful for both of you. And so this
Yeah.
is the power behind emotional intelligence. I know you're chomping at the bit. I ain't gonna hold you out no
Yeah.
longer.
Well, what I was thinking was that sometimes we're not even aware that
Truth.
we have challenges with emotional intelligence because, anytime you use the word intelligence with human beings, people get on the defensive. So it's when somebody says, emotional intelligence, the average person would think, okay, yeah, I'm intelligent. So how does that really show up? And as you mentioned, it shows up in relationships, but it also shows up in ways that we may not even connect with emotional intelligence. So let's say, one of the things that, in my reading, it said that, if somebody is, at the end of the day, you're frustrated with what's happening, the relationships at work, and, you're just upset with what's going on with everybody because everybody has an issue and people are constantly telling you things, giving you advice that you completely and thoroughly disagree with. Everything everybody tells you, or 90% of it, you disagree with it because they're wrong. They don't understand. And,
Hmm.
they're not getting it. They're not getting you. When that is happening on a consistent basis, chances are there's some self awareness work that needs to happen because being able to receive information about yourself in, I guess, what's the word? And the word that's coming is optimistic, but that's not exactly what I mean.
Hmm.
Just being able to receive and think about it objectively. That's the word, objectively. That is when you know that you are intelligent enough and aware enough about your emotions and about other people's, receipt of it and interaction with you and your emotions, that you can stop and think before you react. And that's really what emotional intelligence, after we outline and discuss and define and everything, emotional intelligence really gives you a gap between the situation, the stimulus, and your reaction. And in that gap, you're able to think and respond in a way that would continue to build and maintain relationships and acknowledge others.
Yes. And while you were talking just now, what came to me was self management. And so when you have all of those things coming together now, you are able to manage yourself. And you know, when we are in control of things, we feel better. Let's not pretend. We feel so much better about it when we have some control. We tend to panic, get anxious, and go all haywire when we don't have control, which is where gratitude again can come in because it can help us to really come back and be present to what is happening and focus on dealing with that. But as you spoke about the emotional intelligence, it really reminded me about the importance of self management. And that's also how self awareness and empathy comes in, because you can only manage yourself when you are aware of your own behavior, when you can identify the patterns. So, as you were speaking just now, I was thinking when we are able to manage those patterns of behavior that might be counterproductive or that might be harmful, then because we are now in a more enhanced state of positive intelligence, of gratitude, we are able to work on changing them. And it is in
Yeah.
that shift that we see the difference. It is in that shift that we are able to self regulate. And I know emotional intelligence, like Shelley says, oh, it sounds like all, really, really high up there. But that is as simple as you can bring it to say that self regulation, having that self awareness and that self empathy are one of the key, keystones in emotional intelligence. And it really makes a difference. And when you're able to enhance that with the gratitude, because gratitude is a positive emotion and we know this.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
when we practice gratitude on a regular basis, Shelley will tell you, I am sure 3 times a day minimum, but when you are practicing gratitude regularly, it's become a part of your daily routine. This has a positive impact on you, and you actually see the ripple effect
Oh,
on
yes.
your overall emotional state. So you are making you become more emotionally resilient, you become more adaptable. And that's just by implementing the awareness, the empathy, and the practicing of gratitude. And that's why we really wanted to share not to underestimate the power of emotional intelligence and being in that state of mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of research on emotional intelligence in the workplace, emotional intelligence with networking, family relationships, because all it
Mhm.
is being able to be aware of who you are, as you said, manage your emotions, understand other people, be empathetic, and that affects relationships. And of course, if it affects relationships, then it's going to affect every situation that includes relationships. So, most definitely, it has an impact on work. And, we've all had experiences where we can identify a coworker who either, you know, always the term that's coming into my mind is flying off the handle. That expression that
Yes,
means
yes.
they're like 0 to 100 in
In a
two
minute, in a
seconds.
minute.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we identify these, and we recognize that we see it in others, and we believe that, okay, we're good. Well,
Yes.
sometimes we're
Mhm.
not. And what I'm thinking is that this idea of constant checking in is what really helps to keep us on this journey of being self aware. So, self awareness is not something that, okay, I'm self aware today, so that's it, and I'm therefore self aware for life. It's a practice, it's something that we have to, continue working on and dealing with. And this is why the daily habit of gratitude has such a powerful impact on these things.
Mhm.
Because I was speaking to a client yesterday, and we're working on having her write down the gratitude. And that is a big thing that, many people believe that just saying it is enough. And even though part of the gratitude strategy is say it right, the other part is say it loud. And that is a key component of the entire gratitude practice. Simply saying it in your mind is a start and it's an important step, but it's not where you want to stay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are two things that happen when we write it down and focused when we write it down. So it's like, for example, when you say it in your mind, what generally happens is that we believe that we have to, list as many gratitudes as we can. And we have to say all the things that we're grateful for. And the abundance of it is going to infuse us with all the happiness and so on. That is true to a point, but then it's um expansive and therefore not directed and therefore not as intentional if we just say everything that comes. So the practice of writing down 3 to 5 things, disciplining yourself to stick to 3 to 5 things makes a difference. You
Mm-hmm.
can think of it like the example I gave my client yesterday was if you walk into a room and the room is beautifully decorated, very impactful, and you feel good in the presence of the room. And as you're walking and you're observing, your eyes focus on a painting, and then you concentrate on that painting because it draws you in. And then the room is still beautiful and the beauty is still there. But that focusing on the painting does something different from simply being aware in the room. And that's where the focusing of the gratitude comes in. So, listing all the gratitudes and having, tons and tons of things to write, that is amazing. But when you are restricting or consciously and intentionally bringing it down to 3 to 5, I think 3 is a good number because it
Mm-hmm.
really causes you to focus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's like concentrating and recognizing the awesomeness of one point. And is you could even imagine it like, you know, sunlight on a whole is amazing. But when you concentrate it to a point, that's when it becomes explosive. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how it works with the gratitude. So it's great to be grateful and having all the things that you're listing, but you really want to be more intentional about it and focus it. And that's where the real power comes in. And that is what happens when you write it down.
And as you were saying that, I thought about the impact of that then on your connections with other persons. Because expressing gratitude also means acknowledging the kindness and the support of others. But you can only do that when you have been in that space yourself. So
Mm,
when you have been able to write it down, when you've been able to say it out loud, when you've been saying it always, and you have been in that, and you are in that space more, it comes to you more naturally, where you can then acknowledge and receive the kindness and the support of others. And that in itself, I mean, you started off earlier by saying sometimes we don't recognize whether when we are not in emotional intelligence, but we also don't also recognize how these little things, these slight changes and nuances make such a significant impact. Because being able to recognize and to receive the kindness and support from others enhances your own self awareness, and your relationship and management skills then just start to, as you use that word just now, explode, not only for you, but for others. And so it's such an integral part of it. And it's something that when we think about it now, it seems, well, why am I not, if I'm not doing this, why am I not doing this? Because it doesn't seem that it's something like that's so difficult. And I want to mention too that what's happening while you are in this positive place, while you are being intentional, while you are writing it down and being focused, is you are also reducing negative emotions. So as you are
Yeah.
building one, the other one is receding. So think about it. When you can help to reduce things like envy, resentment, bitterness, when you are able to let go and release the things that no longer serve you. But first of all, you can feel lighter. Poof, that's one.
Yes, because those
Then,
things are heavy.
exactly. And then the second thing is you create so much more space then for the emotional intelligence, for the
Yes.
gratitude, for the happy feelings to really expand. So you are able then to shift your attention away from negative thoughts and emotions, which can damage you, to things that are then going to uplift you. So it's all interwoven and it all comes together by being mindful. So
Yes.
I want to just tie that in with that to say all of our episodes have spoken about mindfulness and that rest in being aware. So mindfulness is so closely linked to self-awareness and to that emotional regulations because it allows you to observe your thoughts and your emotions. And similarly to when you're practicing gratitude, it helps you to stay in the present. It helps you to
Ah,
be
yes. Yes,
present
yes, yes.
to where you
Yes.
are and what is going on with you and around you.
Yes. And so we're looking at that connection between like gratitude and self-awareness and gratitude and emotional intelligence. And I think, many people are going to be asking, all right, I hear you, we hear you, we understand we need to develop emotional intelligence. And so far, all that we've heard really is to, with the gratitude in particular, write it down. Sounds kind of simple and like if something is missing, but that simple practice of writing it down consistently every day, ideally twice a day, in the morning, first thing, in the evening, before you go to bed, last thing, just writing it down. And even if you can't do the twice a day, because a lot of times I just do once, I prefer the morning because I think it sets the tone for the entire day.
I agree with that.
So if that's all you do, that is going to profoundly change your life. And I'm not just speaking because I read it somewhere, I'm speaking from experience and from the experience of my clients getting into that habit. So, one of my clients, she said, things are different and whatnot, and she can't understand why. And I asked her, have you been, you know, um, writing your gratitudes every month? She said, yes, I've been doing that. But I said, okay, that I'm just asking, you know, because it really just puts you in a whole different space. It
It
sounds
does. Hmm.
simple, but then again, remember, as I said, focusing on three and maintaining three, not trying to pull five and 20 and, too many. So I say 3 to 5, but ideally, I think three because it really causes you to focus that intentionality and that decision and that commitment. And so I think we've kind of touched on like about five different things in terms of developing emotional intelligence. We've spoken about self-awareness. We've spoken about managing emotions. You mentioned about paying attention to others, and
Hmm.
part of that would be like being genuinely interested in what's going on with other people. Um, we're also looking at being, I guess we'd call it socially aware. So,
Hmm.
we can understand situations and emotions present in situations. Um, and there's one that I think we haven't mentioned so far, and most of the research that I looked at regarding emotional intelligence speaks about listening. And we did
Mm.
sort of
Yeah.
mention that
Hmm.
in the sense of, paying attention to what others are telling you. And so all of these, as we've spoken about, each one of them, increasing awareness, gratitude helps with that because gratitude keeps us present and gratitude looks at what exists. The managing emotions, gratitude through the biological chemical release and all those things helps us manage our mood, which in turn helps us, take that step back and look at emotions more objectively so that we can choose and be more in control. Genuine interest in others. When we expressing gratitude, we can, one of those points, we can focus on a person, being grateful for what others have done for us, for being around them, from learning from them, all of those things in the gratitude practice. And, and then the listening part of that and part of being able to express gratitude is being aware of what's going on. And in order to be aware, you have to pay attention.
That's the truth.
So, so it's like every step of building emotional intelligence can be positively influenced by having a gratitude practice. Yep.
Absolutely. And I think that when you break it down, as we have sought to do, and hopefully just take away some of the mystique and maybe a little bit of the misunderstanding of what emotional intelligence is, and then when you can just relate to it and see this is something that anyone and everyone can do, that can start to
Yes.
make that difference and have that impact in their life, because we want to really just share with you how the simple practices of gratitude and of blending all of these things that are already resourced within you. You already have all of this within you. You
Yes.
just have to tap into it. How all of that allows you to get it done with gratitude. How similar to Shelley's client, you are able to then start to see differences. And we were like, wait, well, all of a sudden things are just going in a different trajectory. But then when you stop and you really think about it and you say, okay, what's different? What have I changed? And the things come to mind, you realize it's the small things that you have done. It's the
Mhm.
little adjustments. It's the taking that time every morning or every evening to write out the things that you were grateful for. It's about being aware of, okay, what's really triggering me? Why am I this fretful today? What's really going on? And being able then to draw on that so that you can manage those triggers, because then when I'm able to not be fretful, those persons around me are not saying, oh Lord, she's miserable today, something going on, what happened? They then, the reaction, the relationship between them all is so much better. It's so
Mhm.
clear.
Mhm.
So it's really something that important that we have to just bring ourselves to. And that just starts with being aware and being mindful. So,
Yes.
as always, we can go on and on and on. We don't get tired,
Absolutely.
but the time is telling us that we have to wrap. So, Shelley,
Yes, yes. Before we close off and before I make my final statements, I want to say good morning. We have, you know, just to acknowledge and recognize, be grateful for those who take the time to say hi, good morning in the comments. Dr. Powell and Gunawan, I hope I pronounced it correctly. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. And I see Dr. Powell agrees with us about this idea of that practice and how the gratitude and the emotional intelligence work toward really
mm,
changing our lives. And what I've recognized a lot in dealing with coaching clients, you'd find that at the start clients want to see the big change because they're frustrated and they're feeling all these negative things and they just really want it gone. And so they want to see the big change and they expect that big change comes as a result of big actions. And when I tell them, okay, the first thing we're going to do is to get into the habit of, gratitude. Let's start working on that practice. I need you to write it down. Oh, I do gratitude all the time. I'm always saying that I'm grateful. I said, yes, wonderful. That's an awesome start. So let's write it down now. And they're like, just that? And yes. And there's usually a bit of a pushback. So it's 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 interesting that when they realize it's not because it's just a little thing, it's because it's focused and it's directed and it
Mm-hmm.
builds discipline and it pinpoints the location of you present in a moment feeling grateful. And that is where we can put the full stop because that is where the power is.
Oh, yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, oh, you're leaving me to wrap today? I thought you were
Yeah,
going to that.
I was gonna wrap up, and then I thought, and then I paused because I get excited about gratitude and how powerful it is, and I do have to breathe
Reel it
and
in.
bring myself back present and rein it in because I really, really wish everyone would just understand, but it's a process and I have to
Yes.
recognize that, and it starts with the practice.
Yes.
So when we talk about getting it done with gratitude, that's where we begin. Very small step, very simple step. It'll take you about 5, 10 minutes, if so long, to get your pen, get your notebook, and write down 3 things that you're grateful for every morning. First thing, make it a habit, same time every day, and come back to us and tell us how it worked after a month. We are waiting impatiently to hear how that's done. All right, so thank you so much for those who were with us live, and we appreciate you so much. And we look forward to seeing you next week, Thursday again, when we talk more about getting it done with gratitude. So we'll see you. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take care.